All right, hi everybody, and I figured I'd put a little bit of something together just before the interview, and that way it's not so abrupt. So, my 3 day trip to Melbourne. This is day three, which is a little overcast and gray and rainy. The other 2 days were nice and sunny. First trip ever to Australia, and boy, it was a great experience. And it was a great experience to hang out with Alex for 3 days, and it was awesome that he let me interview him, and that way, because I think people are kind of interested in, well, especially the Cuban Cigar website, and I think a lot of people are interested in the book that he authored, which is called El Habano Moderno. So, in the interview, we talk about various things, including the book and the website, and some other personal things as well. So, hope you enjoy the interview that I did with Alex, and let's get to it. So, here it is. Hey, hi, how you doing? This is Dave from my channel, of course, and I'm sitting here with Alexander Groom. Alex,
Hello.
and he is he's here in Melbourne. I'm here in Melbourne, and we're chatting, and we're going to do a little bit of an interview. So Alex, I mean, before we get into CCW and all that other kind of stuff, how when you started smoking cigars, tell me a little bit about that.
Uh, well, it was in my. A friend of mine got married when he was 19. I think I was 18, and I was tasked with organising the box night, the bachelor party, stag do, whatever, I don't know whatever I can call it. But I'd never even been to a box night at that point. I'd never, been to a wedding, I don't think. And I was tasked with organising it, and I thought, what do men do? And men smoke cigars. So I bought some. I don't even know what it was. Some wrapped in a plastic tube, $5 terrible cigar, and we went out and crawled around a bunch of bars, and then ended up. We were there earlier
Yeah.
this afternoon on the steps of Parliament in Melbourne, where you sort of overlook the whole city. And I remember smoking these things, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, yeah, it's disgusting," but something intrigued me about it, and then from then on I was sort of
Hooked.
yeah. I think the next cigar I had was probably a Montefiore I got from a liquor store or something, and that was set me on a path. 20 years later, here we are. So there's one other story I'll tell you before that. So that's this is around I guess about 2001 was when I first was smoking. I began that journey, smoking Montefiore here and Romeo number 2 tube here and there and that sort of thing. So from around 2000, 2001 is when I had my first cigar, and then I guess it would have been around maybe 2006. So I went to Cuba at that point. I remember I bought this little factory outside of Trinidad, which is sort of this old colonial town in the center of the islands. I think it's probably a domestic Cuban production factory of I don't know. They weren't export grade cigars at all. But I bought a bundle off a roller's table for a few pesos, and then basically chain smoked them for the next 3 weeks in Cuba, and that really. And I bought my first Cohiba. I bought a box of Siglo 4, and that sort of was where I was really getting into cigars. So when I came back from there, I was on Friends of Habanos forum. So I was sort of learning more and more. And then Rob Ayala, they started a poker league, and I sort of was getting really into poker and playing a lot of online poker. And then their first tournament, the prize was the Romeo and Julieta 135th anniversary, maybe 25th. It's like this big red box of 100 109 size, 50 109 size, and 50 like a shorter Perfecto size. And I won that. I sort of had this. The final. I was in Paris at like 2 a.m. my time, and I remember I hit a hit a queen, ace high flush in spades or something, and yeah, took out the tournament. And it was this at that time, I don't know, $4,000 humidor. Now who knows what something like that would be worth. But yeah, that was my first like very from what I was smoking at that time. You know, it was very like entry level cigars, and then suddenly I've got these like godlike, you know, ultra high end rarities. Yeah, so that was sort of my real introduction to starting to get into the limiteds and stuff. So I smoked a lot of those, and I traded a lot of them with different people for different, you know, very interesting stuff. I'd been a computer programmer as a profession up to that point, and then I was living in Japan in 2008, and I'd gone over there as an English teacher, and then the job I'd sort of gone to take had fallen through, but I had quite a bit of money in my pocket from working as a programmer for the last sort of 5 years, so I just spent a year really not working. I did a little bit of teaching here and there, but I had a lot of free time, and I was really into cigars. And yeah, there was this website, Cuban Cigar website, which this guy Trevor had started a few years earlier, but it was a very, I don't know about the technicalities of websites, it was a flat HTML website, so just no database behind it, nothing, you couldn't search it, there was no very laboriously updated sort of non-technical website. And it was, yeah, from Friends of Habano, so I was in a blind tasting contest where they sent you it was just one or a number of cigars in different sizes, and I sort of wanted to be able to search by the size, which you couldn't do at that time on CCW, you couldn't search, so yeah, I wanted like to measure my stick and then be like, here's everything it could be for this blind tasting, which yeah, wasn't possible. So I emailed Trevor and said, oh, you should, you know, do this to your website, you put a database behind it, put software. And he basically replied saying, well, you do it. So I had a lot of free time, so I did. Yeah, so that's how I got involved.
Okay.
Yeah, originally, many years ago.
Yeah. So you got involved in it, and then so you made it to where things were searchable in there, and got it kind of to the format to the way it is today, sort of, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. I put the so yeah, back then, if he has like the main, you know, the list of a cigar in the Cohiba page, and he also has in a list of cigars of a certain size, or, you know, list releases of 2003, whatever, all of those pages you have to update in a separate place. They're all yeah, totally independent from each other. So what I did was put a database behind it. So at that point you have one entry that's for, you know, Cohiba Siglo 6, and that's what controls what information is in every page on the site. So yeah, it just became much easier to update and keep it accurate, and yeah, keep growing it. So yeah, it was much more basic than it is today back then. And then Trevor and I worked on it together for 4 or 5 years. So I was just really the technical person. Trevor would yeah, every month or two would say, hey, I've got this idea for a new feature, can we do this, blah blah blah, and then I would yeah, build it out for him, and he would, you know, populate it, and yeah, it was very much his site. And that, so also during this period, I never took any money or anything, but Trevor would send me care packages of exotic cigars, because he was buying everything, you know, needed the pictures for CCW, so he was buying every regional, every limited, everything. So yeah, he would send me these very generous boxes of rarities and that sort of stuff. And then, so at the same time I moved to China, and you know, CCW opened some doors, so I was able to join sort of a group of, you know, very wealthy Chinese businessmen who were, you know, smoking and living with this. It's like this really nice sort of mansion in the French concession in Shanghai where they have a cigar bar and a steak restaurant, and, you know, sort of, yeah, go and hang out and drink nice wine. So yeah, my access to all these, you know, exotic cigars is getting from Trevor, plus hanging out with these guys who are all big collectors, and, you know, in this sort of world of Cuban cigar crazies. Really became an obsession, I guess, from that point where I was learning so much about Cuban cigars, and
So you were doing this stuff with Trevor, and that was like around 2008, right?
Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, we're in about that era when I was in China.
Right. So around 2008,
Maybe
and
2009 into that year.
Yeah, and then Trevor decided that he didn't want to, or so he basically let you take conservatorship or whatever it is of the website, correct?
Yeah. So basically, Trevor, I guess it would have been around 2012. I think he sort of said to me, like, he doesn't really want to do it anymore. He's an older guy, so he's focused on stamp collecting after that. And he used to breed parrots before. He's sort of a man of many hobbies. But I think he was, because it's quite a lot of work, CCW, you get a lot of questions from people, and sort of seen as sort of a reference point in the community. So it's a daily task to keep it up to date, to keep everything accurate. I think he just was sick of doing it. He wanted something where it was more, he could just work on his own. So yeah, he asked me if I wanted to take it over. I said I would. So we did a few years of transition where I was sort of doing the day-to-day stuff, and Trevor was doing sort of, longer-term projects and stuff within it. And then, eventually I took it over fully.
And about what year was that?
It would have been about 2014, I think.
About 2014?
Yeah, probably 2012 to 2014 was the transition period, and then,
okay.
14 was
the time, total crossover on that. And so, so you had the CCW, and I know you and I were discussing that there was a kind of a crash or something like that on the CCW. When was that about?
That was 2016. It was December 2016. So, yeah, we'd used this host forever. I don't even know how we got selected them. It was just some random web host that basically I woke up one morning and there were a few emails saying, "Oh, where's the site? It's down," that happened from time to time. So I wasn't that concerned, and I sort of have a look, and I go to the website, and it's just a blank. Coming
HTML.
soon. This is empty site kind of thing.
Like a 404 or something like that.
Basically like that.
Yeah.
I think even worse than a 404 in that it was actually a message that indicates that there is a website there, but it's like a blank website.
Okay.
Whereas 404 means that you can't contact the server, so that's more, the server's temporarily down, whatever. But
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in panic mode then, right?
So I'm like, okay, this is a bit odd, and I sort of raise a ticket with them, and I get a response that's like, "Oh, very sorry, but your website was lost. There was a crash. Unfortunately, we couldn't recover any data," or something like that. And I'm like, "Whoa, what is this?" And basically what they said was that they thought they had a backup system, but apparently it hasn't been working for an unknown period, perhaps years. Everything was gone, which...
So you had to rebuild it from scratch, right?
So, basically, yes. So, and, I learned a big lesson that day, which was that I should keep my own backups and not rely on somebody else. I had the source code for the software. I had some of that, and I maybe had an old copy of the database, but anything that had been done live for years was all gone. There was just I had no copy of it. Surprisingly large number of people emailed me and said, "Oh, I have a manual copy of it," which is so. And quite a few people have done that. They had a bot that just spiders every page of the site, and then they downloaded it to their hard drives. Which I don't know what they were doing that for, but anyway, it did sort of save me in that I had all of these like fairly recent copies of it. So I was able to rebuild the software and then build like a bot to scrape through all these flat pages and repopulate the database from that. So
How long did that take to do that?
it was about 6 months, I think.
About 6 months? Okay, so now we're...
Yeah. So within a few days, I'd put one of those flat copies up on the site. So as far as people were concerned, there was something there. It just wasn't up to date. And then, I had to rebuild everything. And then, within about 6 months, I think it was back to an operating website.
So now we're into 2017, right? And so you got things kind of back and rolling again. And then what I wanted to ask you too about your website is how do you get all that information? Like, because I use your website constantly, looking for things and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I see stuff in there. And actually, I've actually sent you a couple pictures here and there and stuff. Like we've corresponded. And that's how we got to meet each other. But so you have, I guess, a network of people that you talk to, and they give you the information to do that.
Well, I'm pretty friendly with a lot of the industry people, so the people in the distributors and stuff. So on the regular production releases, I'm able to get there's a file called the master list, which is what Habano sends out to their distributors. That I'm able to get access to that, or at least get information from it. So that tells you what's currently like officially in production. So, because the Humidors doesn't really do an announcement when something gets discontinued, you just sort of have to
get the master list and figure it out, right?
Well, so before I had access to the master list, it was basically powers of observation, in that we'd notice that something disappeared from the market for years and years, and eventually conclude that it was discontinued. But it's sort of hard to figure that out based on your own. But once you have the master list, or at least you have someone at a distributor who can, look at it for you, that gives you that stuff on the regular production and the limited editions and stuff, and then the regionals and the more sort of out there custom packages and stuff. Those, some I get from the distributors. Some is just people who are living in whatever region or traveling there, and they can say, now this is available, this is out this week. And there's the other Half Wheel and Cigarfish and other news sources will, usually there's a press release from the distributor when they release something. So, it's just a matter of keeping on top of all of that.
And you are. I mean, like seriously, like there's you.
Tries.
You look in there, and because I was with a friend of mine, it was funny and he was like going, do you know that this thing is up to date to like 2023? And I'm like, well, yeah, that it's like an ongoing living, breathing thing. It's like he does the updates all the time. And so, I really commend you for all that, for doing that and just keeping it together. It's just, it's wonderful, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it would be maybe not every day, but every few days at least there's some,
something to do, right? Yeah, something to do, yeah. Okay, so then you had the crash, you got everything back. And then I think some kind of an idea germinated in your head that you want maybe a hard backup, right? Something like that, maybe?
Well, that's sort of, I guess it's more than just my crash. There was a UK cigar scene. You remember that magazine?
Oh, yeah, Nick Wing. Yeah.
So, Nick sadly passed a few years ago.
Yeah.
And within like a few months of him leaving us, his website disappeared. Do you know that? Yeah, so it's gone now. That URL has been taken over by like some vape company or something. Like it's just his death, and also Simon Chase's. There's been a few other people before that. It really hammers home. Like, you think of the internet as being this like permanent record, but it really isn't. As soon as someone stops paying those hosting bills, like, it's maybe there somewhere in archive.org, but as far as something that you can find in Google and is actually something people can use, once someone stops paying that bill, it just disappears.
So that germinated the idea for the hard backup.
Yeah, so that's why my book is basically that. It's basically my website as of 2022 or whatever. Yeah, as a real thing. When the world lies in ashes, they'll be able to pull those books out of some vault somewhere.
Right, out of somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that must have been a heck of an undertaking. I mean, like for you to put that book together with all the information and stuff, and the pictures of everything, right? You had to like source the cigars to take the pictures and do all that kind of stuff as well, right?
So that's, I mean, I want to have the best possible pictures of stuff on CCW. I would like to have everything consistent. So, you know, people like yourself, like send me images, but if it's different people doing it with different equipment and different lighting and, you know, whatever, it's never looks as good as if it's all me, you know, all doing it in my own studio with all my own
Well, it's the consistency that's there, right? I mean, like, you know I sent you 3 images of the one cigar, and you're like, well, I was able to clean that one up, you know? I mean, because it's not, my eye taking a picture of something is not to yours. So, like, but you had to do all of that stuff, right?
Yeah. So
how long did that take to get everything together and do all that?
Well, yeah, so for the book, I was trying to buy everything I could find. So, buy or trade for, or, you know, something like that, which is a lot of, you know, there's maybe, probably 1,500 at least cigars released since 2000, which is sort of the era that I'm considering. Trying to get at least a single of all of those to photograph and have, you know, really nice pictures of. I don't know. It's an ongoing effort, but
well, I was able to look in there and see the pictures in there, and they're like wonderful. I mean, and that book, oh my God, it's heavy. That thing is heavy. How many pounds is that book? It's got to be, or kilos. Is it like a couple of kilos?
It would be at least 1.5, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's pretty heavy.
A weighty item.
Yes. So you put so about how long did it take you to get all the information, the pictures, and put everything together in book form so that you can get it published? A couple of years or a year? Or?
Yeah, I think I probably started seriously from about 2019. And then I turned in my final draft in 2022.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't working on it full time. So I engaged with my publisher in 2020. So it took about a year to get it basically complete to like the point of like a draft, and then from then on there was a lot of editing and you know, graphic design, layouts, and lots of stuff. And then so 3-4 years.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah,
that is a long time to put everything together. And so now we're in 2023, and I have heard good news from you that things are shipped, right?
Yeah, I think. What day is it?
May 15th.
Okay, so they're supposed to leave the factory on the 18th.
Okay.
So yeah. You've seen I have a few of the early copies, which one of them is a prototype. The other 2 are from the production line. But my understanding is, everything is printed, which too is a long process. But finally got there. So I guess they have to travel via ship to the. There's a distribution center in the US where they get mailed out from. So people should have them.
Yeah,
in
like
a few weeks, maybe a month or 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too is that like you know, you made your baby, and then you shipped your baby off to somebody, and then it's completely out of your hands, right? I mean, like there's you did the process there, and then you have another person that's doing it. You can't do that. So it's been a bit of a not a stroke, maybe, I don't know. It's been a bit of a process to get everything going, but at least now we know that it should be, we should be good to go within a month or 2.
Yeah. It took much longer than I expected to get from my turning in my final draft to the books in hand.
Yeah.
But
completely out of your hands, though.
Yeah, I've never done this before.
Yeah. But I mean, like, seriously, it's completely out of your hands. I mean, that's like some other people, and it's like, it is what it is. So I mean, kudos to you on being able to make that book. I mean, there's only one other person that we both know that has made a book that is pretty extensive with everything like that.
Yeah.
And everybody's been wanting to see a second edition on that, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So I'm very glad that you're able to like do what you did.
Yeah. Well, that's it's actually more happened. Yeah. So you're referring, of course, to the Minroni encyclopedia, which. So, I think in a historical perspective, Cuban cigars really go in eras. So there was sort of one era from the Revolution until about 1980, which is when they had the failed harvests, and so after that year, there's basically no production for a year or so, and many markers vitolas were discontinued at that point, and that's when the tobacco strains began to change because they were sort of breeding to avoid the blue mold and stuff like that. So that's one era, and then the next era is from 1980 until about 2000, which is when the Spanish money came into Habanos SA, and that's again sort of a period where all of the machine maids were discontinued and many sort of historic sizes went away, and it started to get more. So that's sort of after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it's Cuba's special period was in the 90s, and then it's moving it from when they were a like purely communist government organization, so they didn't really care about marketing, and they didn't, they're just sort of making this product they've been making for hundreds of years without any sort of regard to who's buying it as much. Whereas after 2000 is when it was more marketed to like a modern consumer, and that's when like the regional editions start and all of the limited editions and the various humidors and stuff, like all that happens.
And that's where you're focused for that third.
So that's
era.
El Habano Moderno is my book. So that's the modern cigar. So I'm really talking about what I term the modern era, which is from that about 2000 until about 2022, which is I think right now we're having another shifted era, which is it looks like production's probably going to be half or less what it used to be for the duration. Prices are going to be much higher, much more, smaller boxes, luxurious packaging. So it seems like, I guess if you think the Minroni book documented the 1980 to 2000 era, and he was trying to capture the end of an era, in the same sense, that's what I'm trying to do. In that I think this modern era is probably ending, or at least we're in a period of change, so I've recorded that era.
I'm just glad that thanks once again for letting me interview you and get the information out there, and just talking to you and stuff. And I've been in Melbourne here for a couple of days now, and we've had some great conversations about things, and just your knowledge and your zest and zeal for the cigar world and everything like that, and doing it selflessly, pretty much, has been great, and I really appreciate you for all that you've done. So once again, thank you so much for letting me interview you. I'm going to put this up on the YouTube channel so that other people can find out more about you, because ever since we've been corresponding in email, I've been wanting to come down here, and COVID happened, and of course that couldn't occur, so I'm really grateful to be able to come down here and visit you for 3 days. So
it's a small world, the Cuban cigar world. So we just met a few days ago, but we know a lot of the same people in common, and it's
we do.
Interesting to be part of this world of people who enjoy fine cigars and so on.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thanks again, and I have rambled on enough, and that's enough out of me.